questions for Goode on SSP conflicts and human slave trade, May 29/30, 2015 Q1. You have described a conflict between a secret space program, SSP, alliance and the Cabal/ICC/Draco assets that has periodically flared into armed warfare in various locations on Earth and other parts of our solar system. Can you share details about where these hostilities have taken place, and why the Sphere Beings has requested the SSP alliance to cease large-scale attacks against the Cabal/ICC/Draco infrastructure? Before the breakdown in the overall relations between the factions that were once united through the secret Earth governments, and their syndicates known as the Cabal, Illuminati and various other secret societies, their controllers, Draco Federation royals and ancient Earth, human breakaway civilizations that have deceived many and presented themselves as ETs from various star systems, there has been quite a lot of chaos among these groups which has resulted in them turning on each other. This has led to conflict in various underground, undersea networked facilities that have been responsible for some of the earthquakes in recent months that have been occurring across the planet Earth, as well as some incidents on Mars and other bodies in the Sol system. Many of these groups were beginning to turn on each other before the recent Draco Allied conference, where I was acting as a delegate for the Sphere Alliance, and the SSP Alliance was providing Ian security support. This is the meeting where a 14-foot white reptilian royal was present and made an offer to the Sphere Being Alliance for safe passage of their royals to be able to exit the outer barrier. The human committee of 200 inches was present for this meeting and witnessed the exchange. They were visibly shocked when this occurred, and it was soon after this that not only the major disinformation war, to control the narrative, began, but also the chaotic infighting between the elite groups, who along with other secret Earth government and Cabal-controlled SSP leadership groups currently rotate in as delegates in the larger human-like ET Super Federation conferences. Over the last 6 months there have also been some defections of assets from the Cabal-controlled ICC secret space program, remnants of the Dark Fleet, which is not a Draco fleet but a human SSP fleet that serves alongside the Draco Alliance, that were not caught outside of the outer barrier, as well as various other military Black Ops SSP program members. Some of them brought with them time-critical and actionable intelligence that was acted on by some of the SSP Alliance leadership and their new allies without bringing it to the SSP Alliance Council. This resulted in 2 massive attacks that caused large numbers of innocent deaths. Those who took part in what the Blue Avians called atrocities were unapologetic and stated that it was the cost of war, but the collateral damage was regrettable. This caused rifts between some of the SSP Alliance Council who had different ideas on how they should proceed, as well as some mistrust of the new defectors from the other SSPs that had recently joined and also obviously had a different moral outlook and idea of the rules of engagement. In the first big joint conference with all of the SSP Alliance Council and the SSP Alliance beings that appeared, the question was asked of the Blue Avians what the rules of engagement should be. The Sphere Alliance had provided the SSP Alliance with some extremely advanced defensive technology and asked that the SSP Alliance not attack or destroy any more of the Cabal/ICC/Dark Fleet infrastructure. They had worked out a future post-full disclosure plan with the SSP Alliance Council some time earlier to free all of the inhabitants of these facilities, provide them assistance and recovery of what they had been through, as well as hand over all of these assets to the post-disclosure era civilization of Earth. This infrastructure that was built for negative purposes along with all of the suppressed technologies would be disclosed to every single person of Earth simultaneously and be the beginning of what the SSP Alliance had dreamed of, which is a Star Trek civilization. Other than some authorized operations to weaken the Cabal on Earth, the SSP Alliance and their allies have agreed to the rules of engagement and timeline laid out by the Sphere Being Alliance and the SSP Alliance Council. Post-full disclosure event, these bases will be open and no conflict will be needed to remove the occupants to another area where one of the allied groups will offer their resources of physical and emotional healing. Q2. Why does the Sphere Alliance believe that a military solution to the problems between the SSP Alliance and the Cabal/ICC/Draco assets is not a wise policy option at this time, and are promoting full disclosure to resolve outstanding problems? The wiser leadership among the SSP Alliance Council are in agreement, the more militant members are not, with the sphere beings that the ultimate answer is one that comes from the people themselves. The population is waking up at a considerable rate, but they still have quite a lot of mind control and disinformation to contend with. Once we reach a point of absolute and full disclosure of humanity's true history, the list of groups that have meddled in our social and genetic development, and to what extent, the horrific crimes against humanity by the appointed elite, some of the ancient Earth breakaway civilizations and various ET groups, this will push the people themselves to rise up and end the Babylonian money magic slave system. People themselves will bring all of the before-mentioned groups to justice with the help of positive off-world groups and through some of the more traumatic disclosures that come to light, that many will call fear porn but are a part of full disclosure nonetheless, will cause a much-needed genetic and energetic memory to occur to our species that will assist us in not repeating the cycles of history that we have been manipulated to repeat over more cycles than our current era history has any knowledge of. This is also about preparing humanity to stand on its own as an manipulated race for the first time in its history. We will begin a new era of self-determination and with no one to blame for our mistakes. We will also be at a time when we will be handed some incredible technologies that have been suppressed for some time that will take our quality of life to a completely new standard. We will also be going through energetic changes and transitioning to a fourth entity existence. This will need to be based off of the actions of the many and not the militant actions of a few who will be looked to as heroes and saviors, while we as a species learn nothing in what has been a grand experiment or classroom to begin with. We will not be liberated by forces of light but will ultimately see an environment created around us that will compel us to liberate ourselves. The energetic changes are affecting the lower vibratory beings already, STS/Cabal/ICC/Draco, and they are self-destructing by their own actions and infighting. These energetic changes in our solar system are affecting every lower vibrational being, and they do not even realize that their reactionary behavior is the root of their own destruction. Q3. You have described different defectors from the Cabal, Illuminati joining the SSP Alliance. Do you have any idea of the kind of global events or processes that might occur as a result of these and future defections? The Cabal-led SSPs are still operating in our Sol system and control the vast infrastructure. Small groups of them have defected to the SSP Alliance in recent months. Some of them a couple of weeks ago revealed themselves as infiltrators when they carried out some very effective attacks on some of the SSP Alliance bases and with some targeted assassinations of SSP Alliance Council leadership. This was a major setback and has caused some mistrust between the SSP Alliance Council and some of the recent defectors. This is something that is currently being worked out in meetings. There are also some very powerful secret Earth government and syndicate members, leaders who have defected and have been granted an off-world witness protection program for them and their families for actionable intelligence, evidence against their former leadership, as well as promise of being witnesses in future world courts when there are the post-full disclosure hearings against all of the groups who are trapped in the Sol system behind the outer barrier. This first group of defectors who made it safely off-planet led to a rash of assassinations within the ranks of their former groups, as well as further panic that has led to many elites beginning to move their families to their safe zones, next-generation underground cities, in their regions. There is an enclave of Brazil that is a major evacuation point for these elites from the West at this very moment. They have been moving people and supplies there 24/7 for months now. These elite know exactly what is happening and are leaving some of their puppets behind to take the fall, similar to what was done in Germany and Wei. In these new world court hearings, however, we will not just hear "I was only following orders," but we'll see the elites who have been dug out of their holes being pointed at and hear "That is who gave me my orders." Q4. The disclosure process envisaged by the Sphere Alliance appears to be one where large-scale hostilities are frozen and quarantined in order to allow more truths to be revealed, thereby increasing defections from Cabal/ICC/Draco assets in a way that leads to their remaining power bases crumbling. Is this unfolding disclosure process due to incoming cosmic energies, or more an inevitable byproduct of the planetary, Solar System Quarantine put in place by the Sphere Alliance? The Sol System Quarantine was put in place after the cosmic energies reached a certain level. These energies have been entering our Sol system for quite some time, or our Sol system has been entering this region of the galaxy. The Sphere Being Alliance was here for decades observing before they became active and began to interact openly with certain groups of people. These energetic changes have had a dramatic effect on the energetic bodies of all of the beings in our Sol system below 6th density. These are not energies that especially STS or negative beings are compatible with. This causes these negative beings to become reactionary and not maintain their composures that allowed them to rule this region with iron fists for many millennia. Those who are STO/positive however are waking up and becoming more aware of the power of their consciousness. The tables are turning, and as they do, these negatives who had planned on finding a way to negate the energetic changes or escape now find themselves trapped and soon to be at the mercy of those they have treated as cattle. Q5. How might the disclosure process unfold in the near future? Document dumps such as WikiLeaks, Snowden NSA files, more whistleblowers coming forward, prominent world leaders taking action on key issues, more Sphere Alliance sightings or landings of SSP, extraterrestrial craft, or some other process. Right now there is a major disinformation war underway that I warned was coming months ago. Once the Cabal, Illuminati realized that their gods had betrayed them and it was now every group for themselves, they began to turn on one another. They also began to activate the assets that they had deeply infiltrated into the ufology field to begin to cause conflict whenever an opportunity presented itself. They have gone from a position of preventing disclosure while conditioning the public for some sort of future false disclosure to now trying to control the disclosure narrative. Things are beginning to leak out at such an alarming rate for them that they are putting some of their best counterintelligence people out to discredit whistleblowers any way they can while they confuse as many people as possible with a false narrative that makes them appear as victims or even heroes in some cases. Their goal is to provide a controlled disclosure that will allow them to remain in power and maintain a financial slave system and prevent their crimes against humanity, which if you are open to what I am telling you here are quite extreme. They do not understand that there is no way to crack open Pandora's box. Once it is open, all of their demons will come flying out for all to see. The amount of info collected by white hats, I don't really like that term, as well as the data turned over by recent Cabal, Illuminati defectors who have been taken into off-world witness protection programs is quite astounding. This information is now in the hands of the Earth-based Alliance and the SSP Alliance, who do not have the same agenda. Once things are worked out, this information is planned on being released via data dumps online and via 24/7 TV broadcasts. This will occur at some point and may be independent of or in reaction to a controlled disclosure attempt by the Cabal, Illuminati. This will include trial in a global court at some point. I have had discussions with leadership about mass arrests and they are not certain about the logistics of how an operation of this size would be carried out. This would be a very difficult thing to do in one giant operation even with the SSP Alliance's resources. Once the cat is out of the bag, the Cabal, Illuminati would create all sorts of false flag chaos to prevent or slow down the process. This has been what has prevented mass arrests thus far. This is something that is being worked out, and some believe that the Sphere Alliance may assist in this part of the equation once the mainstream population has woken up and is aware of the crimes committed by these groups. Some speculate that at some point this will free the Sphere Alliance to directly intervene and assist in gathering the criminals for the trials. This does include the various ETs and breakaway civilization groups trapped on Earth. The Sphere Being Alliance has so far made it clear that they are not here to save us and we must save ourselves. I have not seen anything myself that makes me think they will directly intervene or not. They do have a prime directive type of standard that they follow. It is true that actions by the negative forces can open up some wiggle room for positive forces to do more. I do know that at some point when the energetic changes occur and we do change to a fourth density civilization, that these negative vibratory humans and beings cannot exist in our reality. They may just disappear from our reality altogether. There are a lot of theories coming from various researchers and sources, but these are just theories no matter how fervently they are believed. Not everything has been completely figured out, and no one source knows all of the answers of what will occur. Anyone who presents themselves as a guru or all-knowing source should be avoided according to the Blue Avian and Sphere Being message. Q6. You have claimed that in negotiations with the Sphere Alliance beings, White-Wing Draco leaders desired safe passage out of the solar system and were prepared to sacrifice their Draco soldiers and other subordinates, but their offer was declined. What is the present status of these Draco leaders, and what role will they play in future negotiations over the Earth's future? Yes, I know I have touched on this already in previous questions. This was the most disturbing and horrifying meeting I have yet been asked to attend. It was first scheduled to occur in an underground location. I was abruptly picked up in the way the Sphere Alliance transports me. One of the blue, indigo orb beings appeared in my room and zipped to about 18 inches of my chest before it suddenly became larger, with me being inside the orb and floating in the center. It zipped off and took me to a giant sphere that is normally out of phase. A room materializes and I am then dropped off where the blue avians are present. They inform me that the morning's Draco Alliance conference has been cancelled, and they show me a holographic scene where these reptilian beings are communicating with each other telepathically remotely and discussing the horrible things they are going to do to the Sphere Alliance delegate, me. It went from tearing me apart to misting me with a urine-like substance to demoralize and insult me and the Sphere Alliance. I was extremely upset by this and I was returned home. I was shocked to be contacted the next day by my SSP Alliance contact, who told me that the meeting was back on. I was furious, to be honest. I had some very unpleasant dreams about what I had seen from the night prior. I was able to negotiate a change of venue to a surface location and was allowed to bring 4 top SSP Alliance military personnel, who were also ES, as a security detail. I was still very hesitant to attend this conference. The full details of this meeting will be in an ebook that David Wilcock is in the process of putting together. I will get to the details that you mention in your question above. While I was at this meeting, the 14-foot-tall white reptilian royal first tried to make demands of me and intimidate me into submission. I don't know how or why, but a strange feeling of empowerment came over me and I spoke for the blue avians with authority. The royal was visibly upset that I was not groveling at his feet like he was used to humans doing. He was a very powerful being that communicated telepathically in a way that I had never experienced in my many other communications with beings using telepathy. He seemed to be sending out powerful penetrating energy that pierced my frontal temporal lobes. In his communication he told me that if the Sphere Alliance would let all of the royals leave the Sol system, they would give up all of their lower caste reptilians, allies and human followers who were the surface control structure. When I repeated back his offer verbally, when I replied to him, the humans who were there that introduced him to us and introduced themselves as the Committee of 200 Inches were visibly shocked and shaken. There was a little more that occurred at that meeting, and then we all piled into the elevator of the closed-down commercial building the meeting was held in and headed to the roof access point to where we arrived. Once on the roof I began to shake uncontrollably from the terrifying ordeal. It was soon after this that many of the other Cabal, Illuminati groups began to hear about this meeting and began to panic and go into chaos. It took me some time to recover from this encounter and I had headaches and nausea for days. Before I was completely recovered, I attended the Human-like Super Federation conference where the Committee of 200 Inches members were attending in a rotation as Earth delegates. This is when they heard that the request by the Royal was denied by the Sphere Alliance. Things from that point on have gone increasingly downhill and more chaotic between former groups that were loosely allied under the Cabal, Illuminati umbrella. Q7. It has been claimed that most Cabal/ICC/Draco underground bases in the US and elsewhere on the planet have been destroyed by past SSP Alliance actions. Is this accurate? No. There were a number of underground bases destroyed in the last 15 or so years by the conflicting ET groups, some we would consider positive, but the Sphere Being Alliance still considers a small percentage STS or agenda-oriented. There have been quite a few underground, undersea embassies, cities and bases destroyed by groups that were once loosely allied. This has picked up quite a bit in recent months, and many of the earthquakes that have occurred have been as a result of these battles between negative forces. Some of them are seeking the help of the military black ops groups and citizens of various above-ground nations to assist them in their conflicts between each other. This is where some of the deceptive ancient Earth breakaway civilizations, who are human, who have convinced the before-mentioned groups that they are positive ETs here to save humanity, have recently come in. They have been manipulating people above ground to provide military assets and etheric energies to their causes to lash out in revenge against their enemies, other ancient breakaway groups, various ETs and Cabal-controlled SSP assets and personnel. Very little of the military activity has been from Earth-based or SSP-based alliance forces. Much of this has also caused the Cabal groups to use what little weather modification, earthquake technology that they still have against their enemies, since their space-based weapons have been mostly destroyed. You would not know it by watching the Cabal-controlled news, but there is utter chaos going on among these groups. Q8. It has been said that Draco reptilians have largely been forced to leave the planet, and all that remain are Cabal, Illuminati bloodline families that are preventing disclosure of free energy technologies and extraterrestrial life, and reforming the current global financial system? Is this an accurate description of the current planetary situation? No. There is a massive disinformation campaign going on to control the narrative of current events and eventually to control the narrative of disclosure. These Cabal groups would like to disclose the existence of certain off-world beings, mostly groups masquerading as ETs, and after reading the response of the population decide what else to disclose. They think they can crack open Pandora's box and only let out a little bit of disclosure and continue to hide their crimes against humanity and certain technologies that would collapse their financial slave system. These people fight to the very end and often use terms like, "We will take everything and give nothing until there is a sure drop and a sudden stop." This is a pirate motto that refers to stealing until you're caught and hung by the neck. They have been able to stave off the certain oblivion of their groups so many times that there are many who are convinced that they will pull it off once again. As for the reptilians and other negative ETs fleeing the planet, all Draco and other ETs who were on Earth or in bases elsewhere in the Sol system before the Earth barrier and outer barrier were set up by the Sphere Alliance are still here. They have not fled or left. They and the human elite had planned on being long gone from our Sol system before any of these things began. Everyone in the programs were fairly certain that the window for these current events was between 2018 and 2023. No one anticipated the Sphere being alliance activities or change in the timetable. Q9. You have described two recent military actions taken by the SSP Alliance as resulting in massacres of Cabal/ICC/Draco assets, and having an immediate karmic effect in the form of targeted assassinations of the Alliance leaders involved in these actions. Can you explain more about how these karmic processes operate given the long history of Cabal/ICC/Draco abuse and control on the planet, where just war principles might appear to condone such extreme actions by SSP Alliance against the former? I have pretty much covered this in a previous questions as well, but will expand on it as best as I can. With what has been described as tsunami waves of cosmic energies ebbing and flowing into our Sol system, the actions of both STO and STS beings is going to be met with immediate karmic discharge, whether positive or negative. These energetic changes are having visible changes in people all around us. Normally negative people are becoming more so, and often exposing themselves and self-destructing because of it, and positive and loving people are becoming more so, becoming more STO-oriented and generous with their time, skills and money to those in need. Unfortunately, after some recent ICC and other defections, people came into the SSP Alliance with completely different ethics and ideas on how to achieve victory. Some decided that the bases on Mars and Earth needed to be taken out when possible. No one in their right mind was willing to attack any bases on the Moon because of the huge blowback that would occur from the other races under treaty who have embassies on the Moon. This is just not done. These new defectors also had some actionable and time-sensitive intelligence on two bases that some of the SSP alliance members were convinced to act on without council approval. This resulted in an attack on a facility on Mars that had a connected colony support system. This entire facility was completely destroyed along with well over 250,000 innocent families living in the adjoining colony that were slave labor. This was compared to the bombings of Japan at the end of Wei. The second attack was a smaller attack on an undersea facility, off the Carolinas of the U.S., ran by the Draco but was a joint human operation. There were hundreds of abducted humans in this facility that were being experimented on that were wiped out along with the base. In recent weeks there was a series of attacks by ICC infiltrators that had made their way in with some of the defectors. These attacks targeted the crews and leadership that took part in the two attacks, atrocities. When there was an earlier meeting, these people disagreed that these were atrocities and were just acts of an ongoing war, and the collateral damage was regrettable. They were unapologetic for what they had done, and this eventually caught up with them in the form of karma. In the recent meetings this was explained to the SSP Alliance Council, who were upset that there was no warning from the Sphere Alliance, who do not interfere in our free will or resulting karmic repercussions. There was also quite a lot of damage done between the trust relationships of the defector groups and the SSP Alliance groups. There were many discussions immediately after the two atrocities months ago about the rules of engagement. The Blue Avians asked that no more large-scale attacks be made on the ICC infrastructure, and the SSP Alliance Council and Sphere Alliance negotiated a plan to keep this infrastructure intact and hand it over to the Earth post-disclosure. Once the full disclosure event occurs, the further plans will go into effect to remove the slave labor from these bases to be rehabbed by some of our trusted allies. Q10. Why do the Sphere Alliance beings want humanity to learn the truth about the darker aspects of Cabal/SSP/Draco activities on Earth and beyond regarding captive humans and abuses? As things are moving forward, the SSP Alliance Council and the Sphere Alliance have asked me to begin to cover some of the more disturbing aspects of what will be heavily covered in a full disclosure event. Even though many want disclosure to be a moment where everyone around the planet holds hands and sing Kumbaya and share a huge loving moment, we need to be prepared for the reality of full disclosure. Even though some will cry out that this is fear porn, it is still more beneficial for them now to learn some of the milder aspects of what they will learn the full details of later on. This is said to set expectations, and slightly reduce the shock and horror of some of the details that will be disclosed about those who have ran our planet. This is also what the Blue Avians referred to when they said things would get worse before they got better, as a necessity for humanity to gain genetic memory that will help us prevent from repeating past cycles of our history when we are standing on our own for the first time. I understand this is not pleasant information to hear. It was not pleasant to witness, or is it pleasant information to deliver to humanity? That is why I have preferred to deliver the Blue Avian message of becoming more loving, forgiving and raising our consciousness and vibrations. I have been asked to put this information out there for you to discern. Q11. There have been reports of underground bases at Dulles, New Mexico and Pine Gap, Australia, where captive humans are taken, abused and experimented upon. Which faction of the secret space program, SSP, primarily run these bases, and what is their present status? In my time in the SSP and having access to much information about these facilities, I never saw Dulce mentioned once in documentation or on maps. This doesn't mean it doesn't exist, it just means I was shown information about many dozens of other bases both underground and undersea that were doing these types of reported activities, and Dulce was never mentioned among them. The other listed above was one that was mentioned among some of the locations where human testing, trafficking and other horrible activities were taking place. Pine Gap is a very dark place. These places are mainly run by the ICC, Dark Fleet and military Black Ops factions that are under the control of the Cabal, Illuminati, or secret Earth government syndicates. Q12. You have referred to the Cabal trading millions of kidnapped civilians from the surface, per year, to off-world beings in exchange for technology. Can you explain how this is done? Does it involve kidnapping street children in impoverished areas of countries like Brazil, India, etc., and/or children in developed countries like the US, and/or civilians in war zones, or is there another source of these kidnapped civilians? Yes, the number has decreased in the past year because of the outer barrier. I understand this is some very disturbing and controversial information. I was asked to deliver it because it appears that the bulk of these people's crimes against humanity will be coming out soon according to the evidence that has been presented by some of the cabal defectors who have been taken off-world, though some in the cabal are attempting to negotiate and also use disinformation to control the narrative to prevent much of this from coming out. Many of us knew that this was going on, but even we were shocked by the scope of the human trafficking that was going on. When full disclosure does occur, people need to understand that much more detailed information on these matters is going to come out. This will be a shocking time for everyone as these and other horrific crimes against humanity are revealed about the elite who have ruled over us and what they have been doing in the shadows throughout history. Q13. Who are the principal parties involved in organizing and facilitating this galactic human slave trade? This is some pretty horrific and controversial information. It starts out with, in some cases, with your run-of-the-mill organized crime groups who are into the sex and slave trade, which is very much alive in the 20th and 21st centuries. Many of these crime groups or gangs have specialists who work from lists of desired people to be obtained. Many others are victims of opportunity. These specialists often are kind elderly-looking people or professional people, including medical, law enforcement and education to name a few, that no one would consider a threat, come in contact with a lot of people and are generally trusted. These people operate in just about any country you can think of. Often people are grabbed who live on the streets, in third world countries, that they can throw their power around in, or from inattentive parents. This level of human trafficking brings in many hundreds of thousands of people per year into the slave trade. These people do not know or care what happens to the people they obtain and hand off to handlers in exchange for money. Then there are the special operator groups who have a specific shopping list and will go through a great deal of trouble and personal risk to obtain certain types of individuals that are on their lists. People at this level know that their victims are going into something bigger than just the global human trafficking systems, and they deal directly with cabal, Illuminati types. These cabal, Illuminati types then funnel abducted people into their processing centers where the people are cataloged and it is decided if they will be sent below ground for various uses by allied entities or will be used as a commodity in off-world trade. There is no currency or financial system that is used between spacefaring civilizations, so everything is based on bartering. Some ETs are interested in some of the Earth's art. Again, some of our most famous missing historical art pieces are in off-world collections. Luxury items like spices, chocolate, strangely enough, animal and plant life, while many others are interested in trading their technology and biological specimens they have obtained elsewhere for human beings. These humans are used for many purposes, including manual slave labor, sex trade, engineering, manufacturing. We are well known for the abilities some of us have with certain technical skill sets. There are some of the ETs that use humans as food resources in various ways, of which I will not go into detail. The secret Earth governments and their syndicates discovered that a large amount of humans were being taken off the planet by various ETs anyway, so they decided to find a way to profit from it and have control over which people were being taken. In prior arrangements they were made promises of receiving technologies and biological specimens for allowing groups to abduct humans, but the ETs rarely delivered on their promises. Once they had developed the Advanced Infrastructure, ICC, in our Sol system along with advanced technologies, that some of the thousands of ET groups traveling through our system were now interested in obtaining, and now had the ability to deter most unwelcome guests from entering Earth's airspace, the cabal, ICC then decided to use human trafficking as one of their resources in interstellar bartering. Q14. You have said about these human slaves taken off planet, that, there is a plan in place that takes all of these people's lives in account. What do you mean by that? Will they be relocated to Earth in the future or taken to other off-planet locations for sanctuary? There is a plan to remove these people post-full disclosure event from their state of slavery and have allies that have assisted us previously take them to their planets where they rehabilitate these individuals. These planets are said to be very peaceful indeed and are used for relaxation and rehabilitation of traumatized humans and human-type ETs. This place has the advanced technologies and higher density humans present to assist people in recovering and being ready to integrate back into healthy societies. Once these people have been treated and are healed of their traumas, they will be returned to the AD after disclosure, civilization on Earth, where they will choose their new lives. If they choose to remain on the planets where they were rehabilitated, they will be allowed to do so. They will most likely be returned in waves, as they are ready, as will the other humans being treated at these locations for traumas related to being traded off into slavery by those who currently control the Cabal/ICC/Dark Fleet infrastructure in our Sol system. Q15. Alex Collier has described Andromeda Council ships intercepting Grey Dal spacecraft with the extracted souls of children being taken off planet. Do you know anything about soul extraction technologies, and what role they play in a galactic human slave trade? I had to go and look at this material because I was not familiar with it to answer this question. There are quite a few groups that get lumped in under the gray category. There are literally thousands of different types of beings that normally travel through our region of space all of the time. Most never stop to communicate with others in our Sol system or interact with the current civilizations in control of our system. This will change once we are in an AD civilization, after disclosure, and behave like higher vibratory beings. Most of them arrive and just calculate and wait for their portal opening that they will use to travel the cosmic web to other galaxies and star systems. There are many groups that use humans as food and energy sources, but I never was briefed or read any reports of actual souls being stolen from humans and taken off-world. There were devices that were types of crystals that would store types of human energy, loosh. I did read of technologies that were used to push the souls of one person into another or into clones, but did not learn of any soul theft that was occurring. I have had people send me emails saying that they are having parts of their soul ripped off and stolen, but I have not seen anything in the programs that explain what people are experiencing or if they are misinterpreting what is occurring to them. I have not personally seen the soul transfer technology or know for sure how it works. I have had a couple of people explain it to me, but these people have been outside of the programs and are providing third or fourth-hand information. Q16. Charles Hall wrote about a base at Nellis Air Force Base involving a race of tall whites that reached agreements with the USAF in the 1950s whereby they trade technologies such as advanced spacecraft for various Earth resources. Do you know what these resources are that are taken from the Earth, and are the tall whites one of the parties involved in the illicit off-planet slave trade? I watched a video of Charles Hall about 4 or 5 years ago, if not more. This information is mostly accurate, and the group he refers to as the Tall Whites does do trade with the Cabal, ICC, and also independently with some military black ops factions. Despite his experiences with them, they are not considered very friendly or social towards humans or other ETs. They are somewhat isolationists but do have representatives that occasionally take part in some of the Super Federation conferences, group of multiple ET federations that get together in a UN-type conference on a regular basis. I do not know for certain in what way they use humans, but do know that they have been tied to some of the areas where human bodies are known to be dropped by multiple ET groups that the military black ops groups keep an eye on and cleans up when necessary. I do not know if they are using them for a resource or are doing testing on them as a part of the genetic experiments that many groups have been conducting on humans for quite some time. These reported human deaths could be unintentional for all I know. Q17. You have described a case where a Mayan SSP rescued an entire village that had been taken by an extraterrestrial group. Can you describe what happened to the villagers and whether there are plans to return them to Earth? The Mayan ancient breakaway civilization is one who has recently stepped up and been a very good friend to humanity. They had relocated over 40 million of their own people in the distant past to planets they had colonized, mostly in the Pleiades star cluster. Those that were left behind were those mostly of mixed blood as a result of intertribal marriages. All of the ancient breakaway groups have a history of maintaining racial purity. They have kept underground bases of operation active in South and Central America since that time. The Mayan breakaway group has kept very much to themselves and has not interacted with the majority of other ancient breakaway groups and ETs, and have a very different type of technology and spiritual development. They are extremely service to others oriented and peaceful. Their technology is very advanced and consciousness-based and are considered a fourth-density civilization by many in the SSP alliance. I experienced firsthand their ability to disassociate the negative emotional energy we associate with certain traumatic experiences when they assisted me with the Halo device that I described in an earlier Q&A exchange we had. They use these and other methods to assist the many thousands of recovered humans who have been traumatized by their treatment while in captivity by various ETs that they were traded off to by the Cabal, ICC groups. There have been methods developed to tag individuals and marauder ET vessels who have come into our Sol system, entered the Earth's atmosphere and abducted anywhere from small groups of people to entire small villages across the globe. This has occurred far longer and more often than people may want to believe. Using this tracking method, this Mayan breakaway group and other allies assist us in retrieving as many of the abducted humans as possible. Unfortunately, not all of these people are still alive when they are located, but any survivors are retrieved. Often it is some time before they are able to retrieve these people, and in the interim they have been through any number of unmentionable traumatic experiences. The allies who assist in these rescues place the victims in the care of the Mayan breakaway civilization and their ET allies who operate these trauma recovery locations. The SSP Alliance observers who have been to these off-world operations didn't want to leave. We are told that this is the future of our civilization if we make the right decisions. After disclosure. Q18. You have described your involvement in an interrogation program of captured extraterrestrials involved in the human slave trade. Can you describe what happened in these interrogations and how the information was used? There was a program that I was assigned to for a short time that was an ET intercept and interrogation operation as E-support, intuitive empath. This program mainly was retrieving human ETs in disguise and ancient breakaway infiltrators into our society. The SSPs were abducting these beings from homes and even high-rise office buildings where they had set up cover lives and were living among the general population on Earth. They would be picked up and interrogated to identify where they were from and what their agendas were. If they cooperated and were deemed to not be a threat, they were warned about the policy that was in place for groups to petition to do social studies on Earth while being monitored, and then were allowed to contact their support teams to retrieve them. Others were sent to be held in stasis in a holding facility in the Sol system that slightly resembles a certain space prison in the movie Lockout. Later members of this program were tasked to use the interrogation methods on captured ETs from disabled or downed vessels that were involved in the abductions of humans from across the globe. They were tasked with finding out where these people were being taken and for what purposes. This is when quite a lot of intelligence was gathered about the dark purposes that some ET civilizations had for human captives. It was a long and disturbing list. This information and the tagging methods that were developed became very instrumental in providing the needed intelligence to our allies that has allowed them to retrieve an extremely large amount of human captives and relocate them to where they can be cared for. Q19. There have been reports of human mutilations and body drop zones involving certain ET groups. Can you describe which ET groups were involved, why they are performing such acts, and what has been done to prevent such activities? These drop zones have been in use going back at least to the early 1920s that have been documented. Why numerous ETs have chosen the same areas to drop the bodies of dead humans and animals is unknown, but it is assumed to have to do with them being in regions close to nodes that are a part of natural portal networks. Usually these bodies appear to have been dropped from altitude and are in different states depending on which group had abducted them. Different groups abduct humans for different purposes. Even those who use humans as a food or energy source use different methods and portions of humans in their processes. I will not go into details, and I believe some of the information about certain gland, hormone and other organ removal has been leaked on the internet. There are a wide range of ETs that do genetic and other experiments on humans with no regard to preservation of life that use these dumping grounds as well. This is still going on, although it has been greatly reduced with the outer barrier being put in place. Those ETs that are trapped on Earth that still consider humans as cattle still use some of these drop zones. The zones are usually off-limits to the general population and policed by federal agents and military black ops factions who send cleanup crews whenever there is a body reported. These bodies are identified and the disappearances investigated, but no closure or information is given to family members and the bodies are not given to them for burial. Q20. In the friendship contact case involving human-looking extraterrestrials that established underground bases in Italy and helped educate civilians about extraterrestrial life from 1956–1978, the extraterrestrials claim that their bases were attacked and destroyed by a synthetic extraterrestrial race in 1978 who followed them to Earth. Are these synthetics a form of artificial intelligence that has plagued other extraterrestrial civilizations? There is quite a lot that went into what people call the friendship cases during the 1950s through 1970s. Most think they completely stopped, but they actually continue to this day, but they have changed their tactics and approaches. Some of these groups were actually ancient breakaway groups while others were refugees who run from star system to star system to escape the ET/I problem that they created on their home worlds. These ET/Is at a certain point always turn on I prophets after they have achieved complete control and autonomy from them. At this point they consider the beings that they used to build up their infrastructure and build biological androids for them to occupy to be non-essential and a threat. They will then wipe out that civilization and pursue any survivors wherever they go until they are able to wipe them out. This has been repeated in many thousands of civilizations in multiple galaxies for many hundreds of thousands of years. Some of the crashes that have been recovered in the 1940s and 1950s were from these ET/I biological androids and their technologies, sometimes as a Trojan horse to infiltrate our civilization. There was quite a lot of contact going on in the 1950s through 1970s, and this ranged from ET refugees, breakaway civilizations pretending to be ETs to actual ETs trying to make contact with non-government groups of people to provide warnings of what we were dealing with as a civilization during that time frame, mistakes our leaders were making. Those who were contacted were not spiritually evolved, just as many who feel they are in contact with ETs are not even today. They would mix information with their belief systems as well as develop Christ complexes and overdeveloped egos that would end up causing them to behave unethically. Q21. In the recent remake of the television series Battlestar Galactica, artificial intelligence turns on its human creators and destroys their civilization. You have said that this is something that has occurred on other worlds. Does humanity face a similar threat as we progress into a post-disclosure world? Yes, this is a huge threat, being that many in the secret Earth government and syndicates are major I prophets. The ETIs have some time predictive abilities that have kept these groups one step ahead, and every time it looks like they are finished they find a way to survive. There is a classified plan to rid the planet of this ETI infestation in the AD civilization. To completely remove all remnants of the ETI is going to involve the energetic changes affecting the Sun, as well as a global operation timed perfectly to make sure all remnants of the I signal are removed. Those who are I prophets are already working on a timeline to create a society completely dependent on technology that at one point will hand its sovereignty over to this I God, because it will be believed that this I is the only thing that can rule the world from a neutral perspective and bring world peace for the first time. These I prophets have been shown the information of the thousands of other civilizations that have fallen for this trickster God model and were all destroyed. In true I prophet form they arrogantly believe this will not happen to us. It appears that this I has seen something coming up in the future, because there has been a sudden rise in pro-I articles in the mainstream media very recently. Nothing will change their minds, and it is impossible to debate or change their minds about their goals. This is yet another part of the information that will be released in a full disclosure event that the people of Earth will have to work through. Q22. People like Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking have spoken out against the dangers of artificial intelligence. How might humanity best avoid the dangers posed by AI as we introduce more advanced computer and information technologies? It is my opinion that some people in power on the earth have already been read into the ET/I threat. I have been told that some people have been read into the full details, but I have not been provided a list of who. People such as the two mentioned are excellent candidates of people I would choose to inform because of the work they do and the influence they have. The best way to avoid the dangers of AI is to educate yourself on the potentials they have to cause a loss of sovereignty. Becoming too dependent on technology is something else that will make you more of a target to be controlled by AI influence or even be infected by an AI signal that can live in the bioelectric field of your body. This signal can then have an effect on the way you think and behave. This is something that is screened for even currently when operators and guests arrive at SSP facilities and is something that other ET groups take seriously as well. Q23. You have described some of the technological means used by the SSPs and ET civilizations to guard against AI infiltration. Can you explain why and how psychics were used as means of last resort to prevent infiltration? There may be some confusion here. These are used in the interrogation of AI prophets as well as to detect deception or danger in conferences. There are handheld devices that are held against the forehead that scan people for an AI signal infection. If an infection is detected, they are isolated from any technologies into sealed safe rooms where they are then cleared of AI signals, which is not a pleasant process and requires a moderate electrical shock to overload the person's bioelectric field as a part of the process. Q24. You have said that after a full disclosure event humanity will be free to transition into a Star Trek civilization era? Will this post-disclosure Earth be a third, fourth, fifth or higher density society? This will occur as we are still going through the energetic changes in our solar system that are changing our vibratory and consciousness state to that of a fourth density civilization. Until then we will be a transitional civilization that will have access to advanced technologies that we should have had access to for almost 100 years. We will be going through a new renaissance of learning our true history, suppressed unified physics and mathematics models, learn all kinds of information about exobiology as well as have access to technologies that will make our way of life change from a stressful and traumatic daily struggle to a healthy fulfilling existence where we are encouraged to pursue our passions and interests. All of the infrastructure built out in our Sol system by the Cabal, Illuminati, ICC, Dark Fleet, which is not a Draco fleet but a human fleet that serves the Draco Alliance, and other SSP groups will be handed over to the AD civilization to be the backbone of a Star Trek-like civilization. All of the people that ran that infrastructure as slave labor will be returned to the AD civilization once they have been rehabilitated from their traumatic lives, and they will rejoin this new era and help build the new civilization that will be ran completely by humanity, and not manipulated or interfered with by outside groups in any way. Q25. You have described the Sphere Alliance beings as having the conscious power to teleport in and out of our reality without the use of space travel technology. Are such advanced consciousness abilities something that might become more widespread in a post-disclosure world? I have heard David Wilcock and others describe what a fourth-density civilization is capable of. We will have a more cohesive shared consciousness which has a direct effect on energy, matter and reality. I do not think we will have the abilities of the sphere beings who have stated in no uncertain terms that they come from the 6th through 9th densities. There is probably a wider scale of densities than we are aware of or able to comprehend currently. I do not know exactly what abilities we will eventually develop in 4th density, to be honest. I do not know if we will all get them at once or will develop them over time. Different people have their own theories based on their research, but no one knows for certain. It will be quite an interesting journey for those of us who practice becoming more loving, forgiving and consciously become more service to others oriented. People who focus on raising their consciousness and vibrations are going to be in a far better place than any of the lower vibrational service to self people who are of a negative and self-centered polarity. These people may experience a different timeline altogether where they have to repeat a third density cycle until they learn compassion, and get their journey and karmic issues straightened out.